My name is Flash Isaac, and I'm a teacher from the future. When I was much younger, I saw thousands and thousands of people fail Jamb and unable to gain admission. This made me travel in time. Now I am back with the Flashlearners Jamb app and a series on YouTube tagged 120 Days to Jamb. My mission is to help you blast Jamb and as well get justice for everyone who Jamb has served breakfast. This is episode number 77 of the 120 Days to Jamb Chemistry with Flash Isaac. In this episode, I shall be introducing naming of organic compounds. I will make sure that naming of organic compound is out of your problems when it comes to Jamb, WAEC, and even when you are in school. Naming of organic compounds is not just the biggest challenge of most candidates or of most students in organic chemistry, it is one of the biggest challenges students have in chemistry generally. Now, this episode marks the beginning of the end of your fear for naming of organic compounds. Compounds, whether organic or inorganic, they usually have two names. The common name, or you can say the trivial name, and the IUPAC name. For inorganic compound, for example, when you hear sodium hydroxide, the common name is caustic soda, calcium oxide, quicklime, and we have other sweet names like lime water, baking soda, washing soda, soda ash. All these are common names. And when it comes to organic compounds, you hear something like acetic acid. Acetic acid simply means ethanoic acid. While acetic acid is the common name or the trivial name, ethanoic acid is the IUPAC name for that particular compound. Jamb expects you to know IUPAC nomenclature. This stands for International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry. So, IUPAC name for any compound is the standard name for the compounds. Anywhere you go in the world, that naming remains. What should you know to understand naming of compounds? Or what are the basis for naming of organic compound? One, you need to know what organic chemistry is about. And like I introduced earlier, it is the chemistry of carbon and its compound, except the carbide, oxide, sulfide, and carbonate of carbon. Two, you must understand homologous series, which I used a full episode to introduce. I also discussed functional group with you, which are atoms, ions, or bonds that are common to homologous series. And I discussed alkanes with you, alkane homologous series, and the general formula being CnH2n plus 1. And I also told you that when alkanes lose one hydrogen, they become an alkyne. And I was able to list out, or we are able to name the first 10 alkanes. The first one being methane. And we agree that when methane CH4 loses one hydrogen, that becomes CH3. It becomes an alkyl group. So instead of methane, we change the N to I, methyl. And I also told you that methyl is the basis for actually all organic compounds, because when an alkane loses one hydrogen, the space left is filled by a functional group, giving us a name. Every organic compound you see around, they have two parts. They all have two parts. We have the root or parent root or parent. And we have the constituent. Root is the longest carbon chain. The longest continuous carbon chain is the root of any compound, while the constituents are attachments. Constituents can be prefix or suffix. Constituents can be prefix or suffix. In English, prefix means before, suffix means after. If I say admin, this is a root word. How about I say mal admin? You see that we have a word coming before the root word. How about I add administration? You see a word coming after the root word. So this is the prefix and the other is the suffix. Formation, formational, information. So when it comes to naming of organic compounds, what are the prefixes and what are the suffixes? For most organic compounds, the prefixes are usually the alkyl group. Alkyl group, which means alkyl groups are in most compounds, or if not all compounds. Yes, hydrogen alkane loses one hydrogen and every other thing joined to that particular point. If the compound has one alkyl group or just CH3, the prefix will be methyl. C2H5. This will simply be ethyl. So the prefix are generally the alkyl group. Then we have suffix. Every organic compound, they have suffix. Suffix are the words or phrase or stuffs that come at the end of the compound. For organic compounds, the thing you see or the name you see towards the end is usually the functional group. So functional group are the main suffixes in organic compounds. When a compound is an alkane, the naming must end with "ane". For example, if you have something like this, given something like this is C3H 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 H8, and following the general formula CnH 2n plus 2, this is obviously an alkane because the number of carbon is 3, hydrogen is 2 times 3 is 6 plus 2 8. So this is an alkane. Even without this or without this, you have carbon with single bonds throughout and oxygen, hydrogen spreading around. So you ask yourself, if this is an alkane, it means that the naming must end with "ane". That is so sure. Then how many carbon do we have? 1 2 3. Remember, for the first 10 alkanes, we said that when the compound possesses 3 carbons, that is prop. So this is prop. For alkanes without any attachment, there is usually nothing to see, in the sense that that is the name. This is basically propane to show that it is an alkane. What about you have something like this, chlorine? The fact that chlorine is here does not change this guy being an alkane. because it has carbon with single bond throughout, and there's basically no major functional group. We just have a halogen attachment. This would change the name of the compound but not the functional group. A remains. We have 3 carbon. Prop remains. But when you count the carbons, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, you see that on the second carbon there is chlorine. When chlorine is added to a compound, we don't say chlorine, we say chloro. When bromine is added to a compound, we don't say bromine, we say bromo. When iodine is added to a compound, we don't say iodine, we say iodo. When fluorine is added to a compound, we don't say fluorine, we say fluoro. So in this guy, we have chlorine, which is chloro. What is the position of this chlorine? It is for the second carbon. So you simply say 2 chloro. 2 chloro has been added to this normal name. When you combine here and here, you basically have 2 chloropropane. But we are not ready for that discussion now. Let this go back to here. If I change this guy to something like this, you will agree with me that this compound is no longer correct. Why is it not correct? Carbon is tetravalent. Carbon should carry maximum of 4 bonds. This guy is carrying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this guy is carrying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it won't work. In this type of compound, introduction of double bond will basically remove 2 hydrogen. So this becomes C3H6. The functional group here is double bond. So this is now an alkene. For alkenes, ENE will be there because functional groups are usually the suffix. The functional group will be at the end of the name of the compound. So we are sure that for this compound, the name will end with ENE. We are so sure of that. Now, what carbon is the double bond? When you have a functional group, as you are counting the carbon, you must use the counting that will give the functional group the smallest number. So here, if we say carbon 1 is where the double bond is, it will give a smaller number than if we count from here to be on carbon 2. So double bond is on 1 carbon, which is 1 is there. What is on carbon 1? The in. The in is on carbon 1. So we have 1 in. And what is the longest chain? This is 1, 2, 3. 3 carbon. And in the 3 carbon, double bond is on carbon 1. So we need to show that the in is on carbon 1 and the compound is prop. So prop 1 in or propan 1 in. That is it. We've not really started naming of compounds, but I am giving you the basics, the homework. When a compound is an alkyne, the suffix must be "-ine". It must end in "-yne". If we change this guy to something like this, obviously this hydrogen will go. Obviously, this hydrogen will go. So carbon is carrying 3 bonds. 4 bonds rather, 4 bond, 4 bond. This will be the triple bond is on carbon 1. So 1 ine. It will end in ine because the functional group is triple bond. And what position is the ine? 1. And what is the root's name? Because every compound will have the root. This root is the longest carbon. That is prop 1 ine or propan 1 ine. Every compound will have the root or the parent name, which is the longest carbon, and it will have the constituents, which are prefixes or suffixes. Here you can see propan is the root, suffix ine. There can be attachments in compounds where here let's say something like this, H, H, and let's go here, CA3. For this compound, you see that it will have prefix because the prefixes are generally the alkyl group. If we choose this long carbon 1, 2, 3 as our long chain, and we know that this is an alkane, it will definitely end in A. True or true? True. Since it is an alkane, we don't need to put position of the functional group because they are all single bonds throughout. But in alkene and alkyne, you notice that we had one in, one I to show the position of the functional group. From here, if we are taking this to be the root, which is the longest continuous carbon, the root is 3. So this is prop, and either prop or we say propan. We cannot just leave this guy. This is an attachment. It is a constituent and it is an alkyl group. Alkyl group are generally the prefix. They will come first, while the functional group will come last. The root, the number of carbon, will be at the middle. This is simply a methyl. CH3 is methyl. And this methyl is on the second carbon. If we start counting from here or from here, the methyl will remain on the second carbon. So we need to show that we have 2 methyl propane. To separate numbers and letters in naming of compounds, you use dash. And to separate letters and letters, you use comma, like 2, 2, 2, 3, something like this. Remember, we are still introducing. We've not entered naming properly. Now, how do you name compounds? No, we've not gotten there. When a compound is an alkanol or alcohol, it should end in "ol". That is the functional group, and that should be the suffix. When a compound is an aldehyde or alkanes are referred to as aldehyde, the naming should end in "a". Okay, let's do that. No, let's not do that. When a compound is a ketone or alkanone, the naming should end in "-one". When a compound is carboxylic acid, the name of the compound should end in oic acid, butanoic acid, propanoic acid. Oic acid should be at the end. We can have methyl group or constituent being the prefix, but the suffix should be the functional group. And we have when the compound is an ester, the name of the compound should end in "-oit" because esters are alkanoids. Now, alkanol is a OH functional group and the naming should end in "-o". There are times where alkanol or the OH group is not serving as the functional group, it is just serving as a branch. So, if it is serving as a branch, you simply call it the hydroxy. Don't worry, we shall get to that. Ladies and gentlemen, I have introduced organic compounds, naming of organic compounds. Now, I will leave you with the steps to name organic compounds. In the next episode, we shall start action. The first thing in any organic compound is to identify the functional group. That is so important. If I give you a compound, name this compound, you should tell yourself, what is the functional group of this compound? After identifying the functional group, the second thing you should do is that find the longest chain. Because every organic compound must have carbon and chains of carbon. Because the reason for organic compound in the first place is the exceptional ability of carbon to catenate to form various chains, long and branch. You need to identify the longest continuous chain. After that, name the longest chain. If the longest chain is 1 carbon, that should be mid, must be there. If it is 2 carbon, et, 3, prop, 4, but, 5, pent, 6, hes, 7, hept, 8, oct, 9, non, and 10, dec. At this level, you won't even reach dec, or dec will be the maximum you get to 10 carbons or being the longest chain. Then, name and position any branch group. If you've gotten the root name, the functional group, you ask yourself, is there any branch? In something like this, you see this is the longest chain, this is the parent or the root. The functional group is ane, that is an alkane. This one is a branch, which is methyl. So you have to name and position the branch, not just name the branch. We know that this is a methyl branch, but what position is it? Here we saw it at position 2, so 2 methyl. After doing that, you combine the names. But look at this, once you identify the functional group, as you are numbering your carbon, you must use the numbering that will give your functional group the smallest number. Don't worry, like I said, at least 25 episodes we focus on naming of organic compound. At the end, you should be able to name any compound. This is just a wide introduction to prepare you for what we have at hand. Ladies and gentlemen, get the Flashlearners Jamb app, get ready for the question and answers series. Prepare your mind and make sure you are good. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss out any video. You'll be the first to be notified when videos are released. See you in the next episode.